because today's session is best practices to leverage customer education and marketing. And I'm super excited about it because our longtime community member and customer marketing, customer education expert on hand. If you're not familiar with her already, you absolutely should be. Kristine Kukich. Did I pronounce your name correctly, Kristine?
Good. Yeah, Kukich.
Kukich? All right, Kukich. And I had misspelled your name, but thanks to Kathy Fava, we did get, am I not sharing the right screen, Marianne? Because you have your hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. That was an accident. I don't know why my hand is up. I apologize.
You weren't sure what Slack was?
No, I was putting the links in the chat. Again, I got your website in there ready to go too. Sorry.
All right, sorry. Anyway, so super excited to have Kristine Kukich here. Please pronounce your name. I'm trying. I will get better at it. But let me stop sharing.
C-O-O-K, right? C-O-O-K, Kukich.
Kukich. All right.
Yeah.
Kristine Kukich.
My husband's a chef.
Your husband is a chef? Is he really?
Yes, he is. Yes. So Kukich kind of makes sense.
Kukich does make sense. All right. So Kristine Kukich, besides the fact that your husband is a chef, maybe you can share a couple other things about you so that people who may have seen you around can learn a thing or two. And I'm super excited to have you here.
Thank you. I am always excited to be here because I love coming in and meeting all of the new faces and seeing people and talking about what happens in the customer experience. I've been in the customer experience side of the house for, gosh, a very long time, 20 years maybe. And if I sit down and count, I have to sit down and do the math and all of that. But customer education is my forte. That's where I spent most of my time. Did some time as a customer marketer, running community and all of the associated advocacy events and everything for an LMS vendor called Thought Industries before I struck out on my own and opened up Kristine Kukich, the Training Sherpa, where I focused primarily on the joint passion that Jan and I have around using AI in your day-to-day, right? Getting through and being able to leverage the tools at hand so that you can spend more time on things that are a little bit more important than drafting emails. Yeah. So that's kind of what I do and where I've been. And we're gearing up for the SEDMA conference next week, which is the Customer Education Management Association annual conference in Atlanta.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, and something, perhaps I'll add into the slide resources is all those types of communities and things, right? Because there's customereducation.org and
that one's there.
Oh, is that okay? Good. Well,
yep. Customer education. The Slack channel is there. The CE Labs is there. Tons. All of the links to everything I've ever written is there.
Nice.
So
see, when I said, so just showing this, then if you go all the way to the end, you'll see lots of, oops. Uh-oh. 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 That's
How'd you lose it?
I don't know how
it is. There it is.
I know, but now I need to all right. Y'all are very patient with me. Thank you for your kindness.
We have an editor now, so he can edit that out.
Every time I think he's going to edit these things out, he doesn't.
End up there.
He thinks it's funny. It is
Jan, perfection is boring.
What?
Perfection is boring.
Exactly, right? Exactly. All right, so let me go to slide. So you see there's articles, there's posts, there's folks to follow, books, and then we're going to be talking about change management as well. So we added in some of those slides as well. But let's go back to the beginning here and start digging in. One of the things I wanted to be sure that we covered first before we got into things around like AI and things like that was also just like, what is customer education versus customer marketing? What is the difference between customer education and training? Rather than me digging into it, I always have something to add. Kristine, why don't you take the lead here and I'll add in my thoughts, as you know I will.
We will get started with the basics. Showing isn't teaching. There's an actual book out there. It's a little bit older and dated, so it's not on the list, but it's called Telling Isn't Training. And the rut that we can get ourselves into is to just show somebody something. Oh, it's these 5 steps. This is all it takes to do this, to answer a particular how do I do this kind of question. And when we move into customer education in particular, but training and teaching, we're talking about the why. Why is this important for you to learn it? How does it make your workflow a journey more simplistic? How does it get you through to the end in a way that may take fewer steps, that gives you the ability to use things, your time and all of your other resources more effectively? And that's what we focus on. We do a lot of content these days that is really driven by the process that you're in, right? By your workflow. So the training that I present to a casual user of the software may not be the same training that I present, of course, to an administrator, right? A configurator on the back end. The why is really very important into the content that we deliver and the personalization of that content to those different audiences. So we see the big differences there in why they need to learn these things. And we also know from a statistical standpoint, customers that are successful know how to do certain things. And the faster we can get them to those certain things, the more quickly they become successful customers, which leads to less churn and all of the things that we know from a customer success perspective. And that it is more challenging if you're not utilizing the services of a customer education team of 1, team of 5. Some teams are really quite large. Lila from Gainsight has a team of 11
Wow.
that she works with in global education.
Wow. Well,
The
and
guys
that's
at
the
Oracle
thing.
have hundreds. There's like 250 people in Oracle University.
Wow. Well, and what I was going to say though, too, is that's the other thing about it is that you might be like, we also have a channel in Slack, in our Slack community that's like first in CSM, CS leader, right? And so you might be one of the few CSMs and you're trying to be a jack of all trades and think about customer marketing and customer education, as well as how to be a strategic CSM. You might even have onboarding duties as well as support duties, right? And if you're doing that, it's important to understand the different hats that you're wearing, and also then to be able to communicate as such when you're working with the customer, so that as that startup grows, potentially, they might then it be introduced to different people and understand why they're being introduced to different people, because you're separating out the various roles, right? Or it might be that you want them to, say, submit all the tickets to one place, or if they have a customer education question, maybe you'll have that go to another place. You might want to train them in doing those different types of things, perhaps even early on, so that you can track that, so you can track the impact of those different things. You never know, but anyway, some of those things might be included in best practices. The other thing I'll just mention when we're just talking quickly about best practices is it's oftentimes we have been part of, I know I've been part of organizations where we just sort of like give all the information right away. Like, here's everything, go, you're onboarded, you're now educated, now you can adopt the product, here's everything. And exactly how that feels when you have those hands in your face is what that feels like when they get trained like that, right? When they get all the information. It's sort of like when I was giving Cynthia a tour of the neighborhood yesterday so she could walk around on her own. I literally told her everything. It was not the best practice. But luckily I knew that I was just giving her a little bit of information, and then she would have her phone later to refer to these things. Right. So at least if you have a way where they can reinforce it, and she had her why. She knew she was going on a walk today. She knew it was going to be much better weather than our rainy weekend. Right. So she would have a reason for wanting to know where these things were. So when you give them the why, when you give them a way to reinforce, then sometimes they'll even forgive you if you give them all of that information at once. Sorry, that's my little spiel.
It's also part of the reason that we see, Jan, that we see like on-demand learning. as a way to personalize that when the why happens, because it may not happen at the same time for everyone.
Yeah.
And creating a content learning library, then academy, again, pick your words that you want to use for it. I've stuck with Learning Portal for the last few years because I think it's more encompassing
Yeah.
and less academic. But the structure for it is that it allows us to create that personalized journey that your customer might need to be able to get the how based on their why, based on their particular when, because the journey does not always take exactly 10 days or exactly 48 days or 4 months or whatever the timeline is. It is something that can vary from customer to customer, and also take into account what happens when employees leave, right? As an employee is elevated in their own organization or moves to another organization, education is the backbone of how we can bring the rest of those new people up to speed without really having to do a complete reset on an account. Right?
Yeah. And so we spent a lot of time just sort of speaking to the first point, but in terms of how they're similar, though, I think we'll get to also as we get over to the AI page, but there's similar too, because both customer marketing and customer education is at scale, right? And in both cases, you're trying to persuade the customer to do something. In one case, you're trying to get them to learn something and adopt and start to use the product. In the other case, with customer marketing, depending upon where they are in the journey, you may have them trying to do a variety of different things. Either you want them to be aware of something, you might be trying to create an advocate, you might want them to, I don't know, Kristine,
they can be your greatest friend when it comes to being able to work with upsells and cross sells.
Yep.
Because they can present the use case information more cleanly around how a different customer will have done these particular set of steps and how successful they became based on this part of the product that they were using instead of the process that you currently have. So customer marketing can really help with the construct around upsells and cross sells that many people in Success are now being held responsible for.
And also just having in mind sort of what that consistent messaging is, right? When you think about
that it
customer
stays
marketing,
across, right? That the benefit of having the two teams work together at scale is that message becomes consistent across the board, so that we don't have one message coming from demand gen and product that might be different from what we see on the post-sales side of our little bow tie, right? Where we then have success and support and services, marketing, customer marketing, and customer education all in there together. And if we leverage customer education and customer marketing well, they can provide us with a ton of content that is the same, right? That where the message is the message that we as an organization are trying to get across to our existing customers, and sometimes new customers too, or soon to be customers as well. But the benefit is that we can bring in those teams to excite the customer about content, whether it's because they're brand new and they're going, ooh, look at that. Look at this bright new shiny thing that I have. And education knows how to put that kind of content together. It knows how to showcase the things that are important to a customer in the beginning. It knows how to showcase the workflows, the traditional things that you do if it's an HR software, if it's ed tech content, right? There are workflows that are well established, and we can build that content and very easily leverage what everybody already knows about their job and say, here, let me make your job easier. And let me throw in a couple of stats, right? I can give you almost an entire day of your week back because I'm giving you these tools.
Right.
Right.
And I think that's the other thing too, is then if you're leveraging customer marketing, then even if that's in the case of templates or something like that CSMs are using or something that can save you time, it can have consistent messaging across to all of your customers so that you aren't forgetting one portion of part of something. Also, you're more likely to get open rates, when you're looking at emails that come through and things like that, right? And then frankly, customer marketing isn't just, emailing your customers. It can be, a whole variety of activities, right?
Yeah, there's all the different arms of customer marketing. Customer marketing will own community in many cases. They'll be the ones that manage the community. They'll be the ones that handle advocacy and what that means to the organization. It could be something as simple as references, right? Making sure sales has the right people to talk to. It certainly would take a load off of the CS team if they didn't have to be the people trying to figure that out. Send it off to the advocacy group within customer marketing. We've got CABs, right? Customer advisory boards, product advisory boards that involve existing customers in some way, heavily utilized to manage those things. Again, taking away the one-to-many tasks that are a part of the customer experience so that success teams can focus on their customers and their customers' success without having to deal with all of the extras that fall into the scale engine, right? The multiples kinds of things.
Right. So let's dig into the AI part. And obviously, if folks have
Ooh.
questions or comments, please put that in the chat. But I want to be conscious that we send people out to breakout
Yeah, we're
sessions
good,
too.
close.
But for the AI, why don't you just go ahead and dig in? Because I know, Kristine, you've been doing a lot.
Oh gosh, tons. Best example is I just finished a use case for AI in the customer marketing example. All right, I ran through how to build out a customer case study using a generative AI, ask the questions, analyze the responses, generating multiple outputs from one customer interview. So I was able to generate the long form case study, a short form case study, video snippets of the responses that they gave during their video interview, content for sales in Seismic, which was what we were using as our example that time. And then the entries also to go into whatever we're tracking with CS so that they know that all of this happened, right? So you as the CSM would understand that we had this customer and we did all of this work with them and this is what we got out of it. So all of that then was also loaded in as a timeline entry in like Gainsight or again, whatever you're using for your CSM activity. So that starts with it, but the tasks at hand, education wise, gosh, I can plan an entire course. I do all of my mixology summaries from YouTube, Jan, is all done using generative AI. So it creates a title, a YouTube description, my LinkedIn post, and the post for Slack, all in about, I don't know.
And that reminds me that we want to follow up with you on that process. Right now, we have a small army of volunteers doing descriptions of all our past YouTube.
Honestly,
all of our
it
past
used to
sessions
take me days
Yeah.
to get it. And now I can do all of that work in maybe an hour and a half.
Okay. So yes.
Yeah, it's significantly altered my timeline.
Right.
Completely. Build once, execute multiple times. Anytime you have to do something that's iterative, right? That it is the same thing once a month, the same thing once a week, sending out summary emails to your clients after you meet with them. All of that content can be generative AI driven in some way, shape, or form. Most of the software vendors are including a tool like that now in their tools. So watch for that if you haven't already seen it. If you're already working with something, go look for it. It's got to be there or it's got to be coming out shortly to work with it. So that's the benefit there. And then just keep trying. It's the whole set of content that you use when we're talking about AI, whether I'm doing it from a customer education perspective, a customer marketing perspective, or with success, is the structure around just do it again and again and again. If it's not right, tweak it until it is right. I gave you the name of Lauren Turner on the list of people to follow on LinkedIn and wherever you can find her. She is probably the generative AI guru in customer marketing right now. We spend a lot of time going back and forth on how to work with the generative AI. Lauren, Lauren.
Yeah.
Turner.
Yeah, there's some other people too.
Yeah,
Uh,
Mickey
yeah.
Powell is out there. I didn't put his name on the list. I'll add it.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of different people out there that are talking about AI and how to be
Well,
practical users of it.
And Nicole Leffer, I think she's on the
Yeah.
list, but she isn't. I'll just type her name in here. Uh, anyway, she's not doing customer marketing so much, but she's doing marketing AI.
Yeah, she's
Um,
done a lot of work with Jasper, and she was integral into some of the work that they put into their product.
mhm. And so then, what else would you want to say, or what questions people have around AI before we head to breakout session?
I don't think did I see any questions?
Trevor?
I mean, my continual question with this topic is always, what tools are available that are actually worth merit? Because as we all see over the past year or so, everyone keeps adding AI. Sometimes as like a buzzword, sometimes they have an actual vision and an actual plan to utilize it in an effective manner. So for me, like my thing is always, what tools do, I guess for our purposes, CS teams need to keep an eye on that are actually valuable and not just sort of haphazardly slapped together with AI.
I think you need to keep your generative AI tool, whatever one you choose, that they all have different strengths and weaknesses. Most everything I do 5 times. I do it using ChatGPT. I use Claude.ai, Gemini from Google, Copilot from Microsoft, and a new one called Pi. Well, it's not new, but it's newer than those. And I tend to run the same request through all of those engines. And just because part of what I'm doing is research, right? So that I can have this kind of conversation and be able to say, I prefer whichever one for whatever purpose. And yeah, Pi.ai. And for me, Claude.ai gives the best learning experience in terms of learning my voice. It was the quickest to understand the way I speak, the way I prefer to write. So when it generates something the first time round and I forget to tell it who I am, what the end product should look like, it will, in many cases, come through with the right wording, right, the right phraseology automatically now because it's learning who I am. ChatGPT comes in a real close second, but most of that is because I did pay for the Teams version of that. So I'm more confident when I'm working with client information that I'm taking that content into ChatGPT's version because the others are open source, open to everyone. And I don't mind training the model. I certainly don't, but I don't want to do that with my client's information. So I don't do it for anything that's client oriented.
Okay. And so I don't know if there's any other questions about basically how to use AI as you're trying to use as you're using customer marketing or customer education in your role. But if there are, we can talk about when we come back, or if you want to ask any more questions, we can. Just checking.
I'm a big fan of Jasper, Trevor.
Yeah. And so what we wanted to suggest for the breakout session questions is, when was the last time you clicked through on a piece of marketing, or what was the most effective way you learned how to use a tool? Because that's basically customer marketing or customer education at work. And then how could you apply that along with today's discussion to what you do with your customers in your current role? Those are the questions. If you want to look at any of the resources, we do have a lot of different resources you can double click on. And I think something we didn't really mention yet is basically the change management involved. And that's why we included all of these slides here. But one thing we were going to say before we send you out is that in all of this, change management is key, because what you're trying to do is change behavior. And when we talk about persuasion, that's what it is. You're trying to change them into thinking about your product differently, or you're trying to get them to change their behavior when they're learning your product and starting to use your product, because that is change management. So when we think about our role as CS leaders and the way we're using customer education and customer marketing, all of that. This is really where change management is front and center. So let me go ahead and set up the breakout rooms.
Thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode of Success Hour, formerly known as CS Office Hours. We regularly put out new content, so to be the first to know, like this episode, tap that notification bell, hit that subscribe button, and we look forward to seeing you soon.